everybody, and welcome back to episode 14 of the On Deck podcast. I'm your host, Roberto, and today we're going to be going over the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. contract with the Blue Jays, some teams off to hot starts, and whether or not I'm buying or selling them, and then we'll have a little fun with some college baseball. All that on today's podcast. So jumping right in, we're going to be talking about the Vladimir Guerrero contract that he signed with the Jays, and this extension is for 14 years, $500 million. And to everybody's surprise, this news broke very late at night. I was just about to get into bed, and I saw that Jeff Passan tweeted this out, and it was quite a surprise to me because we had heard that Vlad wanted to get his extension done before spring training started, and unfortunately the Jays weren't able to come to an agreement with Vlad on this contract. So having this news break that they're able to get this deal done in the season was quite a surprise, because I think everybody in the industry kind of thought that Vlad was going to go through with free agency and kind of test the waters on where he could sign for next year. Right off the bat, with this contract being signed, I think it's a great move for Toronto. I think this was a move that needed to be done for the future of the Jays, especially moving forward now with the core of Santander, who they signed this previous offseason, Kirk, who they just extended. They traded for Andres Jimenez, who looks to be one of their better power hitters out of nowhere. And now you add Vladdy to that core. This could be a solid team moving forward into coming seasons. But this contract needs to be signed, plain and simple. If you guys weren't able to retain Vladdy, I don't think the Jays are looking to be competitive at all within the next 3-4 seasons, because Vladdy is a very, very talented hitter in all aspects, contact-wise and power, to all fields as well, and this really would have been a massive hit for them. I think now with this Vladdy deal now being over, I think you can now pivot to a guy like Bo Bichette and what his future holds for the Jays. Are they looking to re-sign him to a 10, 11, 12-year deal and pair him with Vlad for the foreseeable future? Or do you let him walk? I think now that the Vladdy signing is over, I think this is the perfect time for, the Jays to sit down with Bo and really have a chat about the future, because, these are two guys that the Jays had brought up together, along with Kevin Biggio, who isn't with the team anymore, but these were, the Jays' three big prospects. And I think if you can hold on to those guys for as long as you can, this year Bo is, looks like he's back to being his old self. Hasn't hit a home run yet through 12 games, but, that's not really his game. He's going to spray the ball all over the field, hit you a bunch of doubles, and really be a good 1 or 2 hitter and provide some protection and get guys on for Vlad, essentially. But I think they need to lock Bo up next. I don't think they are necessarily in a position to sign a free agent. I do like the idea of, Vlad being that guy now in Toronto and saying, hey, this is what we're building here, and kind of being an advocate to, lure the bigger free agents in. Because we all know the last 2-3 years have just been, the Jays are interested in these big names, this big name, but never really signed that big fish. I remember when Ohtani was a free agent, and everybody had thought that Ohtani's plane was coming to Toronto, and oh my goodness, Ohtani might sign with the Jays, and it was just one big hoax, and Ohtani essentially just went to the Dodgers, and the rest is history. But yeah, the Jays have never really been in the running for the big free agents. This offseason, another key moment was them not being able to sign Juan Soto. They offered, I think the offer was $700 million, And we all know Soto signed for ridiculous 765 from the Mets. But there's another that could have been, if Vlad was there to be able to talk to him. Who knows what could have happened? But I think now with Vlad being, essentially a J for life, he can be, an advocate for the Dominican players to be like, hey, this is what we're building here in Toronto, and I think you'd be a good fit. But my overall thoughts on this Vladdy deal, I think it's a great deal for both sides. I know there's a lot of money aspects that are broken down into really interesting and fine details with the signing bonus and how the tax dollars work. And honestly, it's all just extremely confusing and very intricate. So let's just, put it plain and simple. Vlad signed for $500 million, and he's going to be a J for life, and, everything's just going to be fine and dandy. So there's that for the Jays. Looking forward to seeing how this contract, plays out, especially in the later years where I think Vlad's just essentially going to be a really good DH for the Jays. But again, I'm going to be hopefully, watching him in a Jays uniform for quite a long time. Now moving on to some teams that, are off to a hot start this season. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on them, whether or not I think they're going to be a good team and continue to be hot, or if I'm selling them and really just think that it's kind of a fluke this early in the season. And we're going to start off with the Los Angeles Angels, who are now 8-4 as of this recording on April 10th. And today they went crazy against the Rays. They won 11-1. 4 different Angels batters had 2 home runs, which is absolutely insane. And one of those guys being my guy, Mike Trout. And just seeing him hit the ball and just, honestly, just seeing him on the field, being healthy, hitting home runs, is a sight to see. And, as I'll continue to preach every single time I mention Mike Trout, I just want to see him win one more MVP. Just one. One more MVP and, maybe a ring. Hopefully on the Angels, probably never, ever going to happen with how the Angels are constructed every single year. But, a brother can hope for some success from Mike Trout. But they are off to a hot start this year, and as much as I want to say they're going to the World Series, Mike Trout wins a ring, I don't think this is sustainable for them. Last year, having won 63 games, losing 99, and Mike Trout was out for majority of the season. I think he only played maybe 20, 30 games. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I think if Mike Trout stays healthy, I think this team could get pushed into the 70 to 75 game range, but I don't think that they're going to keep this hot streak going. But, we can have some hope and be optimistic, but realistically this roster isn't it isn't built for the playoffs. You have Yusei Kikuchi, who's probably the most hot and cold pitcher that I've ever watched, because he'll have a great start one game, and then the very next start you'd hope that he'd be building off of it, and he walks the world basically. And their bullpen is outside of Kenley Jansen, who, congrats to Kenley Jansen on his 450th save, which is 4th all time. That guy's absolutely, no doubt, a Hall of Famer. So congrats to Kenley Jansen on that. But I don't think this team is very good. They'll definitely finish 4th in their division. Maybe even 5th. The A's could make some noise. That's a young and exciting team to always be paying attention for. But yeah, I'm 100% selling the Angels hot start to the season. But I won't be watching the Angels. I'll be paying attention more to Mike Trout at the end of the year, and hopefully he has more than 120 games played. The next team up I have that we're going to talk about are the 7-5 Detroit Tigers. And to my surprise, this is a really interesting team. This team made the playoffs last year with obviously the top of the rotation being the Cy Young winner and Tarek Skubal, and then that absolute madness of a bullpen, the chaos bullpen, as AJ Hinch likes to call it. But this year, I don't know. There's a lot of question marks for me in this, especially in this lineup. They do have some good young players like Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter. Torkelson looks to be, getting back to his old self. I had saw that he made a change to his batting stance, going back to what he was comfortable swinging like in college, and just seeing him more relaxed at the plate and having success is really beneficial to this lineup, because outside of those three names, and Kerry Carpenter now, he's hit 4 home runs and 2 of them being off lefties, where last year if a lefty was on the mound and Kerry Carpenter was up, we'd immediately see a pinch hitter. I think Kerry Carpenter had under 100 at-bats against the lefty, which is absolutely insane for your best hitter in the lineup. But this lineup doesn't really scare me. That's the thing that I'm worried about. Starting pitching will be great. You have guys like Tarek Skubal, of course. Jack Flaherty came back this offseason. Reese Olson is really good. Casey Mize has looked really good at times. I'm looking for him to take a big leap into this rotation and kind of assert himself as, a solid 3. You also have guys like Jackson Jobe, who necessarily aren't getting the success on the fastball with the swing and miss stuff, but his slider and off-speed stuff are absolutely elite. So it's only a matter of time where he figures it out. He's also only 22, not even 23 yet, so there's so much potential with that arm. But this lineup is just confusing me, where outside of those 3 guys, you can basically go and attack everybody else. And that's not really sustainable for, a lineup in especially the AL Central, where it's going to be wide open for almost every team, except for the White Sox. But this is like a four team race in the Central, and you need to compete. And I think the Tigers can do it, but at the same time, they haven't really shown me too much that I'm gonna be concerned about, walking into Comerica Park ready for a 3 or 4 game set with the Tigers. The next team we're going to talk about is those Blue Jays that we talked about a little bit earlier. And again, I'm going to come back to this lineup. Outside of Vladdy Jimenez, who's surprisingly leading the team with 3 home runs, Springer, who's hitting .429 out of nowhere, I don't think that's sustainable with his age. Especially because last year he hit .220 in 145 games. He has to come back down to earth at some point. Santander hasn't been hitting as of yet. I think if he's not hitting you 25 to 30 home runs, it's kind of not giving you that value that you kind of expected and it paid for. Because he's not good in the field, and he's just going to be a DH for you. And with Vlad being, the star player that he is, he's going to need some protection in that lineup. And then talking about this rotation, I think this rotation is good, not great. They are getting very old. Guys like Gosman, Bassett, Barrios. You did have Scherzer in there at some point, but he has gone down with a thumb issue, but now it's affecting his oblique. Not really sure how those two go hand in hand, but hey, I'm not the guy getting paid $15 million to go and pitch, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not a firm believer in this lineup, nor does the pitching really excite me. You'll have maybe a good start from one of these guys. Bassett threw really well today. he does scatter a bunch of his hits. He's given up 17 hits in 14 and a third innings while striking out 19. I think this is someone that, is a reliable innings eater. Do I expect him to have under a sub 1 ERA for the rest of the season? Absolutely not. Am I going to expect Barrios to be a solid innings eater? Yes. Same goes with Gosman. I think he is, going to give you the most value out of that rotation. But call me a hater. I know, funny enough, I talked to some of my guys, AJ and Haven and Keyshawn. Shout out to you guys. We had a fun group chat conversation today. But yeah, I'm not a firm believer in this Jays lineup. They all know that, I'm a Jays hater, and this honestly doesn't help the narrative. But who knows? Maybe they surprise me, maybe they don't, but should be interesting to see how this plays out. And I think they're a third place team. Maybe even fourth place. Baltimore could all of a sudden get healthy with their pitching staff and start mashing, and this could be, a third, fourth place team. So should be interesting. Last up here, we got two NL teams, and I'm going to start with the Cubs, who are 9-6. And that's a surprise to me, but not too much of a surprise, as this lineup, is really good on paper. I think it's solid 1 through 9. I really like the addition of Kyle Tucker and what he could bring to this lineup. And then, you have the upside of guys like Matt Shaw and PCA, who are, looking to take some leaps in this lineup. But the thing that, kind of is scaring me is that bullpen. That bullpen is really, really bad. Outside of Porter Hodge, there's not really anybody in that bullpen that, you can really trust to go out there and keep a 1-2 run lead. And I think this is, a team that is looking to have some playoff aspirations, and this would help Kyle Tucker re-sign possibly in the offseason. But you're not going to be able to do that, losing and blowing games with this back end of the bullpen. There's not really anybody that's, that lockdown 8th, 9th inning guy. And that's what worries me. And I think this is, the Cubs are playing in a division where it is pretty weak and wide open. With Milwaukee not off to a great start and them having some injuries in the rotation, you got teams like Cincinnati who, could make some noise in this division. But then you have teams like the St. Louis Cardinals and then the Pittsburgh Pirates. This could be a 3-team race, or it could be, a 2-team race with Chicago and maybe Milwaukee if they get healthy. But this back end of the bullpen is just not it. And as much as I like the lineup, they're gonna have to score like 6-7 runs a game for them to really be winning games at a consistent basis, because this back end is just that bad in my opinion. And the last NL team that we're going to be talking about here is the San Francisco Giants. And this one is a surprise to me, and I'm kind of buying this. I'm not going to lie. Right now, at the time of recording, the Giants are 9-3, which is, it's crazy because they're first in the NL West. And I think everybody and their moms had the Giants coming in as, slotted in as a fourth place team. Obviously, you had Dodgers, Padres, Arizona coming in at 1, 2, and 3. And then, fourth, kind of had the Giants there. And then, obviously, fifth, you had the Rockies. But this team has been performing above expectations for sure. And mind you, this lineup hasn't even been clicking. Chapman right now is hitting 205. Adames under 200 at 184. And Lamont Wade, who was, one of their bigger pieces in that lineup last year, it's hitting a $105. 105. Right now they're being carried by Wilmer Flores and Heliot Ramos, who who took a big leap this start of the season. I know it is a small sample size, but after the season that he put up last year, I think this is gonna be a legit star for the Giants, and gonna be a building block for them moving forward with that core of Chapman and Adames and this pitching. Who would have thought? You're gonna obviously get production from Logan Webb, but seeing guys like Justin Verlander being able to produce, you have guys like Hayden Birdsong, who I think could be an intriguing piece for them moving forward. And then that bullpen of Ryan Walker, Camilo Doval, I think those are two. That's a very nasty, nasty pairing at the back end of the bullpen. But this lineup is just, they're not even at full strength, and they're winning games 9-3. Shocker, shocker, shocker. But I think this team can make some noise. Do I think they win the division? No, because the Dodgers exist, and if it wasn't for their starting pitching health, I think they go 162-0 every single year for the next 4 years. It's unbelievable. But with that being said, the Giants could, make some noise as maybe the three seed in that division and a possible wild card team. And then if they sneak into the playoffs, watch out, because I think this lineup, once they start clicking, is going to absolutely mash. And then they have a trio of Logan Webb, Justin Verlander, and Robbie Ray as the three pitchers in a playoff series. And you could even throw in a guy like Jordan Hicks in there too. I think that could be, a dangerous team and come playoffs. And I think it's a sneaky team to pay attention to this year for sure. I'm definitely buying some San Francisco Giants stocks this early into the season. But to close this one out, we're going to talk a little bit of some D3 college baseball. And we're going to talk about Yeshiva University. This is a school in Manhattan, New York. And this team has lost 100 games in a row. And they're playing against Bronx Lehman College this past weekend, who had also been on a 42-game losing streak of its own before winning their first game of the doubleheader against Yeshiva University. And the crazy thing about Bronx Lehman College, the last time they won, their head coach, Chris Delgado, was on the team. I'm going to just let that sink in for a little bit, because to me, that just sounds absolutely insane. They hadn't won a game in 2 years, and Yeshiva University hadn't won in 3. That's a lot of games that you go just losing. And then the second game of the doubleheader, Yeshiva University got a strikeout, dropped their strike, threw it to first, and they won the game. They ended up winning 9-5, and it was just absolutely shocking in this video. Once the ball was thrown to first, it seemed like the team had just never won a game ever. Like, nobody's ever won a baseball game. There was no kind of emotion that was being shown. It was kind of just like, shake hands, catcher towards the pitcher, infield does their little dap ups in the middle. Same goes with outfield. I don't know about you, but I would have been jumping up and down, going absolutely crazy. Like, 100 games to lose in a row, and you're not showing any kind of emotion. I don't know. That, to me, that's kind of crazy. That, you're not jumping up, screaming, and to see it, the amount of people in the stands. I was seeing clips on Twitter, X, and there looked to be a good enough showing for these 2 games, which, with the losing streaks on the line, you can either watch history being made on both sides. One team continues to lose, or a team breaks their streak and becomes winners again. But, it was good to see that Yeshiva University finally got their win, and that 100-game losing streak is over. And, I can't even imagine losing that many games in a row and just not, never seeing a W in the win column. hopefully the streak for Yeshiva University never comes to that extreme of a level again, and hopefully they have some more success coming their way in the future. But with that being said, that's going to close out this episode of the On Deck podcast. I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, rate 5 stars on Spotify. It's greatly appreciated. We have a very, very special guest lined up coming up on the podcast very soon, so stay tuned. I think you guys are going to really enjoy who we have coming on next. And let me know if there's any teams that you think are either starting off bad or, off to a hot start like we talked about today and have a different opinion on them. I'm very interested to see how this plays out, and, we'll come back in a couple months to see how these teams have either progressed or regressed, and, we can have a conversation about that. But with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.